Good evening and Merry Christmas to those of you of the Christian faith. This interview is airing on Christmas Eve, so many of you will listen later while you celebrate with family and friends. And I know many of you are not able to do so because of all the circumstances surrounding 2020. And if you are spending it without company, you are never alone. Not when the night is darkest, the wind coldest, the world seemingly most indifferent. And that, of course, is the message of Christmas. We are never alone. Just know I'm thinking of you. So get comfortable and enjoy tonight's episode. Can a Christian be possessed? Do God's angels and Satan's demons dwell unseen among us? Engage in spiritual warfare? Are ghosts and spirit manifestations real? How about aliens and UFOs? If you believe in the Bible, you already have faith in the unseen. Unusual experiences are a testimony of sacred scripture and the gateway to understanding the power of God in your life. Just like in biblical times, mysterious forces are still at work today. The paranormal world isn't merely scary hauntings and occult legends. Tonight's special guest will discuss his own true spiritual journey and real stories of others to correlate supernatural phenomena and the biblical worldview without compromising either. It's time to bring paranormal back into the light where it belongs. So stay with us.
You are listening to VERITAS. If this is your first time, welcome home. To listen to tonight's full interview and all of our material, join the VERITAS family and click on the subscribe button at veritasradio.com. You can make your purchase with a credit card, PayPal, cash, check, money order, and even cryptocurrency. We are now accepting Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. Don't forget to visit the VERITAS store for focused life force energy, MMS, CBD pure hemp oil, Divinia water, pure organic sulfur, flash drives with all our Sanitas and VERITAS seasons, and other great products. And if you want to get in touch with Mel, want to be a guest on this radio program, have a guest suggestion, or have feedback, just click on the contact button of our website at veritasradio.com. And if you're listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, and share it. And click the bell to be notified when new interviews are available. And now, here's your host, Mel Hostelrick.
Richard D. Lewis is an author, journalist, and veteran of the U.S. Air Force. A graduate of the Defense Information School's Writing, Broadcast, and Public Affairs programs. Richard joined the Air Force in 1987 and spent 10 years as a broadcast journalist stationed in Turkey, Utah, and Colorado. After his time serving in the Air Force, Richard worked in TV production in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Los Angeles, California. Creator of the award-winning Pentagon Channel, TV news magazine, Air Force Space Today, he has won multiple Telly and Thomas Jefferson Awards. Richard has been featured in many publications and has a new book titled The Paranormal Christian, Bridging the Gap Between Unusual Experiences and the Biblical Worldview. His website is Zoran, Z-O-R-A-N, zoranpress.com. Richard Lewis joins us from Gardena, California. Hello, Richard. Thank you for your service to our country. Merry Christmas and welcome to Veritas. How are you?
Hey, Mel. Doing great. Merry Christmas to you and all the listeners out there.
Thank you. Well, Richard, you have a very interesting story. But before you share your story with us, I just want to make a comment and ask you a question. Many of our religious listeners, when they hear the word paranormal, which in my opinion is the same as supernatural, or when we discuss UFOs, aliens, etc., many of them always say it's demons, it's the devil. Do you agree with them, or are you approaching the topic from a different perspective?
Oh, yes. I definitely am approaching it from a different perspective. But the thing is there's a lot more, it's a lot more nuanced than a lot of believers understand, and a lot of the more, traditional paranormal enthusiasts understand. So first of all, as you said, the word paranormal, I know that's a trigger word for many people of the faith, but it really shouldn't be, because paranormal simply means supernatural. And to be a Christian is to believe in the supernatural. Our Bible, the testimony of sacred scripture, it is a paranormal book from cover to cover. And so to be a Christian, and the other thing too is the thing I'm wondering about is why should we let the forces of darkness co-opt this word? I mean, it is what we are if you believe the Bible.
Okay, fair enough. And I'm glad you said that, because believing is trusting the unseen, trusting the unprovable, telling science that if you cannot prove it, then we have to leave it on the spiritual side. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree with that. Now, I do think that science definitely informs our understanding. If you read my book, The Paranormal Christian, there's definitely a lot of science in there. In fact, I have nearly 700 references, so it's very well researched. But I think these things all can be viewed through the lens of understanding that there is a creator, and we have a divine revelation in the canon of scriptures. But God is bigger than the Bible. He's bigger than all of us. God is an extraterrestrial for those who enjoy the ancient aliens theory, but extraterrestrial in that he created the earth, so he's not of the earth. Neither are his created beings, the angels, and so forth. The created. But at some point, you have to turn to faith. I've had this experience of knowing God. I didn't have to go to church to learn about God. I've always had this presence, this voice speaking to me. And over time, I explored. I've always been a seeker, and I want to find out what is that voice that's talking to me. And then beyond that, through experience with the church and various congregations, denominations, getting to know what the sacred scriptures reveal, but also being a seeker and being interested in these other thoughts and philosophies. And I welcome all diverse opinions on these matters, but really, over time, what I've discovered is the Bible, I don't think contradicts the things that we're observing in archaeology, in science, and in those of us exploring the paranormal. I believe it all fits together, and I'm trying to correlate those worlds and bring it all together for everyone.
Well, let's begin with your story, because you have a very paranormal or supernatural story, you yourself, correct?
Oh, yes. Well, my life was saved by the paranormal. So I was abducted as a young child. Back in those days, we wouldn't do this at all today. But back then, being a latchkey kid, being a Gen Xer, we used to go everywhere, walk for miles and miles, and we didn't think anything of it. We used to go trick or treating on Halloween. We would disappear and be gone for hours and come back with pillowcases full of pounds of
yes,
candy, and so it was no big deal back then. But so I had to walk over 2 miles when I got off the school bus in first grade, and to get to my grandma's house. And so I was on one of these walks. I had done it many times. It was very routine, and I was abducted. I was abducted by a teenage man, a young man, and he took me to a shack where he had a partner, and they proceeded to. They were about to tie me up, and who knows, God knows what would have happened. And the two of these men were, they overpowered me. I was only, like I say, I was just a little 6-year-old boy. So, that's a very small child, and I really didn't understand what was going on, to be honest. But I knew it was something bad. I knew it wasn't good, and there was definitely some trepidation there. That I knew it was unsettling, and so these men questioned me, and they asked me some questions. They asked embarrassing questions. It was very, very strange for a child to deal with. But then finally, they decided to tie me up. So the older man asked, they had the teenager sit me down in the chair. And as the two of them were about to bind me with a piece of rope, there was like a split second where their hands were trying to exchange the rope, where I was not being held, and I heard a voice as loud and clear as your voice right now speaking, and it said, "Run now." And I didn't question it. I just instinctually jumped up, and it was a split second, but it was all the time that I needed. And I ran to the door of the shack. It was dead bolted. I undid the deadbolt. The originally was right behind me. I mean, I could basically feel his breath on the hairs of my neck. And I ran out of the shack, and the sunlight exploded like a supernova as I escaped. And this kid gave chase, and I don't know how I did it, other than it was a plain miracle. But it was like I was flying, Mel. It was like my legs turned into a blur, and I've never ran this fast before in my life. Now I was a pretty good runner in high school and stuff like that, and I wasn't bad, but this was the fastest I've ever experienced my body moving. And the kid was chasing me, and he was, like I say, a healthy teenage boy, at least healthy physically, probably not healthy mentally, obviously. But he tired, and I remember looking over my shoulder, and he doubled over, and I never slowed down. It was on Pine Street in Greensboro, North Carolina, where this happened. I crossed the railroad tracks and crossed over East Market Street, and there was my grandmother scampered up the steps right into her welcoming arms. And they were going, like, my Aunt Kathy came out, and they're going like, "Where have you been?" et cetera, et cetera. And of course, they called the police, and the police came out and took a report, but they never found these two people that abducted me. But I know the voice saved me right there, and I knew from that moment forward that I was here for a reason, and I'm so thankful to God for saving me that day.
Did that teenage boy, was he driving a car? How did he abduct you?
So I was crossing the railroad tracks, and he was actually walking down the railroad tracks. And I don't know if, we used to do this as well, where we would, you would walk on railroad tracks as a way to get around town, because the tracks tend to cut through areas where streets don't necessarily go, and you can get from one end of town pretty quickly to the other on the railroad tracks. So this kid was just walking on the railroad tracks, and as I was making my way crossing the tracks, he spotted me and shouted, and I heard this voice over my shoulder, his voice, and it said, "Hey kid, wait up, slow down. Hey, hold on," And I mean, again, I was 6 years old, and I was just obedient to somebody calling me and telling me to stop, which in retrospect, I have to wonder, like, why did I even stop in the first place? But I had no suspicion in my body. I was not, it didn't even occur to me as a little child that there was anything wrong until he wouldn't let me go, because it was before he took me to the shack. We stayed on the street side there on Pine Street, right before you get to East Market, and he would grab my arms and hold me, and there would be cars would pass by, and I remember one car actually slowed down and was kind of like checking out, like, what the heck's going on out there? So what this kid did was he stood my hands and dancing me around and twirling me around and acted like we were playing, like maybe he was my big brother or something. And then when the person would drive on, then he would go back to whatever. And I tried to run away, and he would grab me, and so I couldn't escape his grasp. And he took me on down the railroad tracks to the shack, and he would shove me in my back and knock me down if I so there was I was captured. There was no escaping this.
What do you think the reason for the abduction was? And I'm sure you didn't find out, luckily, thank God. But what do you think there was? They wanted you in the shack.
I mean, I don't know. I definitely didn't understand it back then. I think they were probably going to rape and murder me, quite honestly.
Yeah, right. Did you ever take the law enforcement over there to the shack?
No. My family didn't. I was just a little kid, and the officers weren't really interested in talking to me. I mean, I did come out, and I was like kind of by my grandmother and my aunt when the police were there, and they were basically like, "Hey, are you okay?" That kind of thing or whatever. But I was just a little kid, and they were not about to put me through that. And I'm not sure if my parents my mother was working at the time, but I'm not sure that the caregivers, my grandmother or my aunt, would have even let them do that. And I don't recall them ever asking or offering for me to go point it out. But my aunt certainly did tell them where it was and everything. And apparently they never found these individuals.
I hope that they are no longer on this plane, because when something like this happens to a child, I mean, you were a lucky one. You were a lucky one, but that is not the same luck that some other children go through. So you're right, and this was probably a miracle. So what after so many years of this event happening, what do you think happened? Have you gotten any answers to those questions you've had for decades?
Well, I think that we're all here for a reason, and I certainly don't think I'm any more special than any of the other people in God's creation. But I do think that that we have intuition and we have a connection to the divine, and I believe that God is speaking to us. And I do think that we have guardian angels that talk to us. The thing is that I believe people always get the warnings. I don't think that it's like guardian angels just our own break whenever people get abducted and terrible things happening. I think sometimes just people are distracted and they're not really paying attention. So the more in touch with the spiritual that you can be, the more you can devote yourself to God, to prayer, to quiet time, the more I believe that you will hear this voice speaking to you too. And in the Bible, it talks about the voice of God being a still small voice. And in this case, it was a very loud and clear shout, and I'm very glad for that. But I don't think nefarious things happen without some warning. But at the end of the day, it's the choices of evil people that sometimes causes others to suffer. It's really not. It's not God that's causing the suffering. It's the bad choices that people make. And so that if there's anything that I can share with the world, it would be to connect to God, connect to your higher self, to connect to your angels, and you will find that safety, you will find that salvation. And by staying out of trouble, usually trouble will avoid you. But in that case, hey, I was out. I mean, maybe a child shouldn't be in an unsupervised situation like that. And these days we definitely would never let our children be walking 2 miles every night or coming home from school.
I'm listening to you. When did this happen? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, in what year were you born?
I was born in 1969.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was born in 1967. I thought this probably was 2 years after. So 1976, would you say that's when this event happened, 75, 76?
Yes, sir. It would have been in that time frame. And actually, I did a little research, and there were some child abduction strings that were going on in the mid to late 60s that I was able to see, and these kind of things have continued to propagate on. But there were some pretty serious things going on, as far as knowing for sure who the suspects in this case were, but. Maybe they were wiped off the face of the earth. Maybe they're listening right now, and I certainly just pray that they would ask for forgiveness, mental issues that they have, and again, it all comes down to evil, and evil is a real and present force in the world. It's not more powerful than God by any means. And at this Advent time and Christmas Eve, just the looking at the positive. I mean, we've got signs in the heavens. We've got conjunctions happening that haven't happened for hundreds of years. So as much as evil is real, the power of God is even more real. And as you pontificate on the meaning of the Star of Bethlehem and what was it? Was it planets aligning? Was it a comet? It was probably a conjunction, but basically it's still the power of God speaking to man, and his power. If you just reach for him, I think everything else is going to fall into place. Just keep your eyes on him. Christ said, "Abide in me, and I will abide in you," and he always has with me.
I think that's exactly what's happening. It's the conjunction of the planets there that create this illusion of a very, the Star of Bethlehem. I mean, what the wise men said and supposedly what directed them to Jesus. But, I'm thinking of that time when you were abducted. I mean, I remember in the 70s, the freedoms that we had. Or today, I mean, what we thought was freedom, our parents allowing us to just be out and come back home to dinner when the lights come up, on the street lights come out, right? Some people saw that today, they would think this is child abuse. But this is the way that we grew up.
Yes.
No seat belts. I mean, some of the things that we did back in the day, and we're still alive today. And I don't know if this is making a lot of the youth today weak. I respect what they do today. They're so advanced when it comes to computers.
There's definitely something that...
Go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mel. That's a very good point. I mean, there's something to be said for spending time on the playground and getting a few bumps and bruises. And we didn't have bike helmets. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have. I mean, if you made an appointment, it was based on a phone call on a landline, and you better find a phone booth if anything goes amiss. And so. And our parents weren't negligent because it was how they grew up. My mom and dad, they were children. They grew up in the 50s, and it was certainly like that with them as well. I mean, you get on your bike, you go to some place, and you're playing baseball or football all day. Your parents aren't going to see you literally for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours or more, and nobody thinks anything about it. As long as you report home sometime before the next morning, you'd probably be okay.
Exactly. Now, have you experienced anything else since that event happened that triggered you to write this book?
Yes, sir. Definitely. And I don't, I don't want people to think that I see demons under every rock. And I try to look at it from a pretty scientific and skeptical viewpoint, but just understanding from the supernatural viewpoint of the biblical writers, because we've kind of lost that supernatural worldview. You have to understand the Bible from the context of the people who wrote it through God's inspiration. It's kind of like, the Star of Bethlehem. A lot of critics of the Bible will try to say, well, see, the Bible is wrong because it calls it a star. It's not trying to be a science book. And if lights in the sky intersecting, I see it as a star. I'm not telling a lie. If I blow my nose and say I blow my nose in a Kleenex, I'm not lying if it's a different brand of tissue, because it's like, well, was Jonas whale or a fish? Well, maybe it was a whale. It was a great sea creature. Well, the Hebrew word seems like it means fish, great fish. Well, does it really matter? If I see a whale, it looks like a fish to me. It's a big giant fish, So people are a little too hard on the Bible and that kind of thing. But as far as me, yes, I've had everything from I've seen ghosts, I've witnessed UFOs, I've had after death communications with people. And I've had visitations from angels. And I can see people's angels. So yes, it's definitely a normal part of my life. It's the paranormal is the new normal for many of us, and it doesn't mean you're evil or crazy. And that's another thing too why I wanted to do, because people can be, you can have some chemical imbalances and things like that, but this testimony of the paranormal is something that's been a part of human history since before we had written histories. People have always had awareness of spirits and angels and ghosts and exorcisms. And these things, they cross the boundaries of religion. And it's pervasive. So whether or not you agree it's scientifically provable, the weight of evidence is really heavy if you think about the testimony that we have of the written histories and people's diaries and journals and family histories. I mean, everybody has these stories in their families. I think our society kind of puts the paranormal on the fringe, but people are interested in it. Like, maybe they don't want to talk about it openly, but thank God for shows like yours and Coast to Coast AM and the other great things, and History Channel's awesome Hangar One and Ancient Aliens and all these great places where it's safe for the paranormal. And my message to Christians out there is, all you paranormal Christians, it's safe for you to come out of your paranormal Christian closet, because it doesn't disrespect God at all. In fact, calling it anything but paranormal to me is disrespecting God, because to say that it's supernatural, well, you don't know if it's supernatural. Supernatural means it's from God. Well, it could be preternatural. We don't know. A lot of times you experience something and you have to discern whether it's from God or not. So I just choose to call it with a parlance of the day, which is paranormal, and I want to get the people that aren't interested in Christianity, but who are at least open spiritually to experiences to, hey, take a look at what I'm saying and what I have to say, because these things are real and it's no threat to anybody's beliefs. I mean, it's a free country. You're free your free exercise of religion is a great tenet of our country, or the freedom to not have any religion at all. That's great too. And science is a religion to a lot of people. And I love all of it. I love God.
Yeah, not sure if you finished your statement there. You got cut off all of a sudden. But I don't mean to judge anyone, because especially during Christmas Eve, you don't want to judge anyone. But I have a problem with the extremes. For example, you have the very, very religious zealot, and I remember this. I was reading a UFO book many, many years ago in the lunchroom when I used to be in the corporate world. And this very, very religious, overzealous person came along and said, "Do you really believe that? That's demons." That's why I said that at the beginning. You should not be reading that. And I knew the person was the devout Christian. And I said, wait a second. Shouldn't you, as you said in your book, You trust the unseen. Why can't I be interested in this? If we live in this grain of sand that we call Earth and we have a big universe, if God is so magnificent and omnipresent, why couldn't he create more life in addition to us? Why are you so selfish to say that, and arrogant? This is the height of arrogance, to say that we are alone. Well, he didn't say a word. It was deer in the headlights, and he walked away, never asked me again. And then you have the other side. You have the very devout atheist, if I can use that term, that does not believe in anything. How can you, if I take a chalk and I throw it on a blackboard, I expect a paragraph to show up all of a sudden? You know, this is why I think that there's a divine force behind all of this. So I have a problem with both extremes. Where you stand?
Oh, I would agree with you completely. And here's the thing too: is well, first of all, for the devout atheist and for the skeptic, the skeptic you'll never convince. An argument won't convince. Science won't convince. If you've decided in your heart that there is no God, I mean, that's between you and God, in my opinion. And, you're welcome to feel that way. But I don't find that people can ever be convinced through argument. It's a matter of the heart, and where I believe God impresses upon the heart individually. So that's why I say it's between you and that person. The same would hold true for the extreme on the other side. I mean, I think that God welcomes our curiosity. I mean, he wouldn't have made such a wondrous, vast universe if he didn't want us to explore it. I mean, look how long we had to wait just to be able to see, exoplanets and black holes and all this kind of thing. I mean, we've waited, probably millions, maybe billions of years to be able to even have the ability technologically to see the stuff that he put in place all these billions of years ago. And as far as the vast aggregate out there, we really don't know for sure, do we? But I'll say this, it does seem like a huge waste of space whenever we've got 100 billion galaxies or something to that nature in the known universe, with 100 billion stars in each galaxy. It seems like a waste of space that we would be the only life out there. It's not a given. And the topic of UFOs is definitely is multi-layered and complicated. I mean, there's a lot of, being an Air Force veteran, I've been around a lot of very high-tech aircraft. I've seen several space launches. I know what the International Space Station looks like in orbit from the Earth. And I've been gazing up at the stars my whole life. So, when I say I've seen UFOs, I hope it doesn't sound fringe, because I've only had 2 UFO experiences in my whole life, but I've looked up at the sky every day of my life. So really, that's very rare, very rare. The 2 is a surprise both times. But I know the difference between military aircraft and not. And our stuff, our high-tech stuff, does look like UFOs. I mean, the F-117, the B-2 bomber is designed to look stealthy. It's quiet. You don't hear it. It becomes a fingernail on the horizon. So it's not just blind to radar, and it's all black, and it can drop bombs from higher than you can even see. So that seems like something paranormal too, but of course it's very natural. And we know what were actually out in 1929. There were flying wings, and at that time, I mean, heavier than air flight wasn't even very old. So anybody that saw a flying wing, it was a UFO. So I think a lot of these things.
You're cutting out, Richard. You're cutting out.
That we haven't seen, that the government is developing. So that probably accounts for, Sorry, I was just saying that I think a lot of UFOs are technology that the government is testing out secretly and everything. And then I think that some of the abduction experiences, I think we can't declare completely like, hey, there's no alien life out there. I mean, the laws of physics make it really difficult planetary travel. But I'm certainly not Christian at all, or even civil or polite, to just, wipe away somebody's beliefs, feelings, or faith.
Let me ask you this. And by the way, you're cutting out. I don't know if you have any apps open where you are. Maybe you want to give a little bit more bandwidth. But anyway, I have a question regarding your experience in the Air Force. And this is something that I've been pondering for a very long time. I've seen my own UFOs. I've had my own experience. I cannot tell you if they're man-made or if they're from somewhere else, another dimension. But I saw something that I could not explain. And based on the technology that we have right now, what we're told is not what it's out there. And we know that the governments and military, they say 50 years ahead of us. I would say it's even more than that. But my question is, how do we know that what we see up there is not our own military? And this whole notion of, and you probably have seen this lately, the Navy and the government is talking about all these sightings that the military is having. Could this be a ploy to create a one world, and I hate to say this on Christmas Eve, but I have to create a one world government, because that's presented to every country of Earth. What a great way to unite the military, to create a one world government so that we can all unite against an extraterrestrial threat.
Yes, I think that's a very interesting concept that you bring up. And, I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't want to discount any possibilities.
Okay. Well, let's dive more into your book now. You interviewed a lot of people. What was your protocol? What kind of thesis did you use before you went out there to interview people, contact them, and tell me more about that process?
Well, basically, so what I wanted to do was lay out a picture, a kind of a survey of paranormal experiences, and kind of give a little glimpse into the spectrum of things that are out there. There's so much of it, actually. I couldn't even fit it all into one book, and the book itself is very meaty. It's over 400 pages, nearly 700 references, dozens of pictures, hundreds of references to the scriptures. But I'm only really scratching the surface because there's so much there. But basically, I would take my own experiences and the experiences of others, both classical and known, and historical and unknown, being people that I meet. That a lot of it happened very organically. I mean, anything from a formal pitch to someone being like, "Hey, I understand this happened to you. I would like to interview you for my book," to something as simple as standing in line at a grocery store, and I hear somebody talking about a ghost story or some other thing, and it's amazing because the next thing you know, people want to start telling you stories, and then I want to pull out a pen and a piece of paper and say, "Hey, let me start writing some things down here." So it's the full gamut of ways as a journalist to get this information, and I'm trying and what I've tried to do is correlate it all into the biblical worldview, because I believe it does all fit together. And the more you have eyes to see, the more you see the connections happening, and the more amazing it becomes. So yeah, that's kind of my approach. Buzz Aldrin has not replied to any of my queries, although his publicist has a couple of times. But hopefully, one of these days, I can get old Buzz on the line, and because I got some questions for him.
What would you be asking Buzz Aldrin? I would ask him if he really, really went to the moon. Yeah,
that's a good question. I believe that we did, but it would be interesting to see what he would have to say. I did interview Chuck Yeager, who just recently passed away.
Right.
And Chuck had he was a very kind of cynical, almost grouchy kind of guy. Great old guy, the great hero to me. But yeah, he basically, his answer on the UFO topic was, has he ever had UFOs? He says, no, I don't drink before I fly. So so that's okay. Okay, that sounds like Chuck. Now, but I think Buzz is a little more open to it, and of course, there's many accounts where things were seen when they were flying in orbit. A lot of it has been, there's theories that, like, well, it was you're looking at space junk, you're looking at cast off pieces of the lift vehicle, things like that. But then, what about all the stories about what they saw when they landed on the moon? Supposedly, there's a lot of witness testimony, secondhand, so forth. But the claims the Apollo astronauts did see things when they landed on the moon. So, and Buzz himself has talked about edifices on Mars, and wanting to know about, I think was it Phobos, the
Phoebus
asteroid, and
Phoebus, one of the moons
like
of Mars.
Something, yeah, Ebos, yes. Yes, that's it. Sorry. And I know that Buzz has kind of piqued the curiosity there. So I think he's a bit of a showman, and I don't know. Maybe hopefully, if this book takes off and gets out into readers' hands, maybe he'll take me seriously, and we can connect about it.
Interesting you mentioned Buzz Aldrin, because I remember years ago talking to James Fox, who, by the way, has this new documentary out called The Phenomenon. So a little pitch for you there, James. But I remember during our conversation, he told me that he flew to France. I believe it was Nice or southern France, and to meet with Buzz Aldrin for an interview. And he was supposed to be in the lobby at a certain time in the morning, didn't show up. So after waiting for a couple of hours, he called his room and said, Mr. Aldrin, I'm down here at the lobby. I've been waiting. I came all the way from the United States to France to interview you. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do the interview. So you never know what happens to these people. Is it mind control? Is it somebody saying,
yes, this is true.
Don't talk to anybody? And, when you look at that press conference in 1969, the year you were born, when the astronauts came back, people see that press conference. That happened, I believe it was months later or weeks later. It was not a couple of days. It was, we're talking, I'll find the exact time, but it happened a lot of time after. And it makes you wonder if those three were mind controlled to the point where this is the only thing you'll be able to say. I mean, who knows what happened? I'm always saying that I'm a skeptic when it comes to the moon. Maybe they use a different kind of technology to go up there. But when you have the telemetry's gone, the technology is gone, the footage is gone, and now they're saying it's too complicated. We lost all the technology. We won't be able to replicate it. And then NASA says that we are working on spacesuits in order for the astronauts to go through the Van Allen belt. But they don't tell you, wait a second, we did that several times after 1969. So you see why I'm a skeptic when it comes to the moon?
Oh, yes. No, and there's a lot of people, Mel, that agrees with you about that. And I will say this, mind control is real. I mean, humans are very adept at body language reading and ways to put things to literally manipulate people through mind control. And I believe that it's demonic as well. I believe that it can be demonically empowered to be like a superpower, And so that's very real. And I can also tell you from experience, when you work for the military, for the Air Force, there's moments in time where you're basically instructed, hey, it's time to stop talking about this. And suddenly your whole tone and conversation changes. We go back to Roswell.
Right.
We go from sending out press releases saying that and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, it was a weather balloon. So sorry, we got that wrong. No, we don't do that. First of all, I don't think the Air Force I know does not issue press releases without due caution. So the fact that already went out and then suddenly the story changed, I'm pretty skeptical about that.
Yes, and with Roswell, it's another story. Well, all of a sudden, it's a flying disc that crashed. Then it's a weather balloon. Then the occupants were, crash test dummies, and they were not even invented at the time. But just to go back to what I just said about the press conference from the Apollo mission astronauts, July 16th, 1969, it's the alleged landing on the moon, and the press conference happened exactly 2 months later, September the 16th. 1969. So, again, why would they wait 2 months to have the astronauts come out and talk about their experiences? Is it because they were, just like when you go scuba diving, you have to decompress for, a few hours a day maybe, but for 2 months? Anyway, let's move forward to one of your witnesses. Tell me what is that witness that you have that you say this is an incredible story and I'm glad I caught it?
I feel like a lot of that stuff happens organically, and I feel that the paranormal and the supernatural, they move and they flow, and there's an ebb and a flow. I believe there's the seen and there's the unseen, and I feel like the unseen is always communicating with us. So it's kind of like you have to have your antenna up, ready to receive it. So it's kind of like, you get an intuition, and aha, like that's something very important, and you just kind of know. So that doesn't sound very scientific, but that's kind of how it's just a sense that you get. And it seems like when people have a message to give to you, they sort of find you. You don't even have to find them. They just sort of just show up in the most random places. Like I say, you're getting an oil change. The next thing you know, somebody's telling you about a departed loved one, and suddenly you're trying to console them, and maybe you're getting some kind of a message. And these things it's a very real experience.
Interesting you bring this subject up because I remember studying intuition and synchronicity. Some people call it coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in synchronicities. And there are so many examples of things that have happened to many people I know, even to me, that you cannot explain. And you have that in your book in Chapter 2, Intuition and Synchronicity. What did you find about intuition and synchronicity?
Well, intuition and synchronicity are two ways that that God and the universe, however you want to perceive it, but it's the way that we receive the communications, and it's very real, and it's not something that, like I say, I'm no more special than anybody else. I believe we all have these innate gifts as human beings, and it's the way that the spiritual contacts us. And so, yeah, there are no coincidences. And a synchronicity is a coinciding event which has meaning to the receiver. Now, of course, to the skeptic, nothing is miraculous. So it doesn't matter if it like lands right in their face. You know, the true cynic, the devout, extremist on that side of the case will not ever see it as anything but an accident. But for those with eyes to see, hey. The more you open yourself up to intuition and synchronicity, the more you will have these coinciding events. You will have these chance meetings. You will have the phone ring, and suddenly it's a voice you haven't heard in years that you were just talking about, and suddenly they call you. These things will happen more and more the more you tune into them, and that's how the unseen universe contacts and connects with us, because it's a different frequency. We're experiencing life through this physical realm. It's like the Matrix. The Matrix is a great metaphor for the spiritual. We are in the Matrix, honestly, and I feel like the spiritual world is actually more real than this physical world, and that's what we're getting a glimpse at. It's sometimes there's a glitch in the Matrix. That's when you have a deja vu, and that's when you have a synchronicity. And if you follow those leads, they'll take you somewhere special.
I bet you, Richard, that 99.9% of the people listening to us right now have predicted when the phone is about to ring. This has happened to everybody, I think. And somebody told me once, especially the gentleman that I interviewed regarding synchronicity, that we have the ability, obviously, to remember our past, but we also have the ability to remember our future. And that doesn't make sense, right? When you say it, remember our future. But we can actually predict it somehow. And perhaps, predicting a phone call could be the start. But you can actually develop that attribute. And that's part of being spiritual. And this is why some people are saying, be careful. And I don't mean to bring the VAXINE or VACCINE that's about to be given to a lot of people. They're ready to roll up their sleeves. One of the ingredients there supposedly attacks or amends one of your chromosomes, and it's the chromosome responsible for compassion, empathy, and spirituality. Do you think there's a concerted effort to remove that, and as you call it, God or the universe, to remove that connection from all of us?
Well, I mean, that's very interesting, and there's a lot of people who theorize about that in terms of like the people that are more on the sides of end times prophecy and Antichrist. I mean, the truth is we've had many Antichrists over time, and we'll probably continue to have many more. Something like that is a very interesting thing to think about. I mean, what if the alien grays are really us from the future, cold and emotionless? I mean, and really, this doesn't contradict. If you understand God as being the creator, there's this science knows that there's an irreducible singularity. We call him God. Did all this. So then God and the Spirit must abide outside the created universe, including time and space. So if you're outside of time and space in the Spirit, then of course you could be in the future or the past, either one, and you could see what's coming. And if you are psychically connected right now, my friend, about this vaccine, it's something to be, a little cautious about.
Oh, you used the word. That's going to, some algorithm out there is going to catch that word and say, oh, VERITAS, this show is going to be down. But intuition, again, the psychology of intuition and pets, you discussed that too. Intuition and pets. I mean, how many people can talk? I mean, it's not the crazy cat lady I'm talking about, but many people actually can communicate with pets.
Oh, yeah. Well, animals are very spiritual creatures, especially high-level animals like our domesticated animals, like horses and dogs, cats, things like that. And the thing about it is, animals don't have all the other dramas and ego issues and stuff like that we humans have, which get in the way of our spiritual communication. So, in many ways, I feel like animals are more spiritually pure and connected to God and the universe than we are, because like I said, we have our own, agendas and egos and hurt feelings and whatever else that gets in the way of communication. And the energy you get from an animal is the words that she's very interested, because she is very interested, and she stares deeply into my soul and deeply into the slice of pizza that I'm trying to eat. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
I've had animals, and I think, the old saying, all dogs go to heaven. I believe that animals have a soul. A lot of Christians don't want to go there. The church doesn't say it's not true. It's pretty much not really what they think. But we really don't know. We don't know how wondrous could heaven be if there were animals and plants and the Apostle Paul talks about something that sounds a lot like an out of body experience, and he said there's a lot of things there that he can't really describe, because when you come back into this earth plane, we don't have, we got the hardware, but we can't download the software. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, these pets, people have experienced their pets. I have, after they've passed away. I mean, I had a situation where I was flipping through my phone the other day, and this was recently, and I was not looking for a picture of my dog, and I have something like over 4,000, almost 5,000 photos on my iPhone. It's ridiculous. I really need to find some time to move those over. But as I'm scrolling through, I just happened to land, and I'm going, probably a couple of hundred pictures per swipe. I mean, it's really flying, and I happened to land on, there's a picture of my dog, and it hit me. My departed dog, Rocky, he died a few years ago, and I happened to think about him when I saw the photo, and then I checked, and it was actually the very anniversary date of his death.
Wow. So, see, this is the kind of story.
Now, to the skeptic,
Go ahead, Richard. You there? Go ahead. Yeah, we have a little bit of a delay back and forth, but go ahead.
oh, sorry about that. There's probably nefarious forces that don't want these messages getting out to the world, quite honestly. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that a skeptic will say it's just a coincidence. But in your heart when a spiritual experience has impacted you. And I had the same thing happen with my cat Misty after she passed away. Bees come and pay me visits every year, anniversary of my mom's death. And they won't let me forget. Like, even if I forget, and how could I forget? But you get busy. And then suddenly there's this bee that won't leave me alone, flying around in my face, and I'm like, wait, what's the date? And then I look at my calendar. Oh yeah, that's right. Today's the anniversary date of my mom's passing. It's just amazing things.
Yes, and about pets, it's interesting how some people in religion, and I don't mean to attack religion, but for example, I remember my daughter was 7 years old when our beagle dog died in 2014. And that affected all of us, obviously. And then when she went to school the next day, the Catholic school, parochial school, they were saying that day, okay, so today, just tell us who you want to pray for. And when it was her turn, the kids were, I want to pray with my grandpa that passed away and, my aunt, blah, blah, blah. When it came to her, she said, I want to pray for my dog that just died. And the teacher said, I'm sorry, but we don't pray for pets. They don't have a soul. And how do you explain that to a child? And then I have so many people who have told me, all you need to do is look at any animal, any living being in the eye, and you'll know that they have a soul. So how can you prove anybody out there who's very religious and overzealous, and I have a problem with that, when they say they do not have a soul? Where do you stand?
Well, this is one of the reasons that I wrote this book, because so many religious leaders, pastors, leaders of all denominations, they make these hardline stances on things that really aren't supported by Scripture. There's definitely things that the Scriptures don't speak about, and if it doesn't speak about it, the church can't say that pets don't have a soul, because, and the great thinkers of the church actually said that they do have a soul, but it's not the doctors of the church. They say it's not the same as our soul, but this idea that we have of do the animals have immortality in the same way that we do? And I think we can't say that they don't, because we don't know. And to say that they're not spiritual. I mean, they feel the emotions that we feel. They read our minds even. I've seen pets read human minds, and it's more than just being attuned to our actions, because you can literally speak to a pet telepathically. I've tested this out myself. It's part of the connection that we have with them, and so you hear a lot of very declaratory statements, and then people get mad at religion, they get mad at God, and the thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to recover the supernatural worldview of the Bible and trying to recover the faith and let you know that, hey, it's okay. Because guess what, Mel? There's plenty of Christians that do very much think that their dogs go to heaven, and they don't care what the church or any other leader says about it. They know what they feel. And, there are certain things that the Bible says and it doesn't say. And I believe every word that's in the Bible, but people have added their own things. The Bible never said that the earth is the center of the universe or the center of the solar system, but people from the church, certain people put it upon the Bible, but it's not there. In fact, the Bible says kind of the opposite. It says, God suspends the earth over nothing. And if you actually look at the earth, it's amazing. That's actually true. And it's philosophically true, not necessarily scientifically true, but gravity is not something you see. And if you look at the earth, it's a big blue shining marble literally hanging in the blackness of space. And that is miraculous. And if you were looking at it as an ancient seer, this truth revealed to you, you don't know what gravity is or anything else. You're going to see God suspends the earth over nothing. That doesn't mean that, science is wrong in what it's saying. And it doesn't mean the Bible is wrong either. It's just a matter of a point of view.
And obviously we have many people who believe the earth is round, and I have also many people who believe that the earth is flat. And some say, if it's flat, that just proves that there's creation behind it. I say to that, if the earth is a ball, that also brings creation into the equation. So one is not more important than the other. I'm a globe skeptic myself, but I cannot prove either or right now. But the sacred geometry that we see in the universe, whether you believe that there's a firmament, you believe that the planets are wandering stars, or you believe that there's planets out there in multiple galaxies. I mean, something happened that created order out of chaos. And I think that this does not happen just by chance.
I agree with you. Absolutely. It's not by chance. And it really doesn't matter, does it, then, if the earth is flat? I believe, however, I haven't personally been into space and seen it with my own eyes. And we really don't know from the ancient writers from the Bible whether they knew whether they knew it was round or whether they believed it was flat or what it is, because in the book of Isaiah, it talks about God stands above the circle of the earth. And so a lot of people believe that means sphere. And it's really hard to know for sure, because they could have also thought that circle meant a flat disc. So with a dome over it. And there's a lot of people that believe that. I personally don't. I'm not really an earth skeptic. However, have I seen it with my own two eyes? I haven't. I think you can remote travel out there and take a look at the earth. And so my sense is that it's my intuitive sense is that it's spherical. But I haven't with my own two eyes been to space to see it for myself.
But you see, at least you stay in the middle. If evidence is presented to you, I would think that you would change with the evidence. But you're not close-minded enough, or you don't have cognitive dissonance saying, there's no way that this is black or white. Because you're saying to me, I haven't been up there, 100,000 feet above the ground, or, 200 miles above the earth, or 500 miles, beyond low Earth orbit to be able to see it, right?
Absolutely. I have not been to space. Maybe Buzz can make some connections for me if we ever get to talk, but I would love to go to space. But yeah, so you've got to stay open-minded with this stuff, Mel. it's very important. I do know. I know that God is real. I know that there is something on the other side. I believe the Bible testimony, and I believe that we're all connected spiritually, and we're here on the earth to learn how to get along, to learn how to love each other, and to listen and be patient with each other. And we are not gods unto ourselves, so we have no right to make declarative statements to people. We can believe something, and then we can say this is why we believe it. And once you have evidence presented, then hey, maybe it's not what I thought. But when you've actually experienced these things. Like a lot of Christians don't think that they're ghosts. But when you've seen a ghost with your own right mind, and you've experienced after-death communications, and you've seen these things, you know what you know. And basically, that's kind of what the Bible writer said, too. It's like we can't help but testify to these things we've witnessed. I mean, the life and times of Jesus Christ were miracle after miracle. And this is the testament of sacred scriptures.
Yeah, very important, all of that. I'm thinking this is being recorded a few days before Christmas Eve, is airing on Christmas Eve. But from now, and I have to always say this because things have been so fluid lately, that in a couple of days, life might change. And I have to make this preface here by saying that in the next few days before, and I'm getting confused, if you are listening on the 24th of December, according to certain sources I have, some are talking about 6 days of darkness. Some are talking about this year from the 21st to the 24th. This is obviously the winter solstice. We're going to see things that we haven't seen in hundreds of years. Others are talking about perhaps going to martial law. So I don't know. I hope that level heads will prevail when this show airs. But I want to leave this here because we are preparing. We are preparing for, just like you prepare for a storm. But one thing I want to say, and this, it's interesting how we can weave between the coronavirus and this situation with the paranormal, because we think of the Akashic records, we think of consciousness and everything that comes with it. The fact that when we are together, we can actually make change, collective consciousness. And if you think about what the governments, at least in the United States, and I know in Europe, they're trying to prevent people from getting together. The three places since ancient times: taverns, restaurants, and churches. Those were the three places where people planned a better world, or, vice versa. And what are the three places that they want us not to go right now? Bars, taverns, restaurants, and churches. Could it be that they have realized that when we get together, we really put an effect into the collective consciousness of the world, and they want to keep us separate so that we don't have that power?
Absolutely. Whether there is earthly conspiracy going on or not, I don't know. But I will tell you this: this is how our spiritual enemy thinks. This is how Satan operates. It's by keeping us separate. He does not want us in community with each other. He does not want us working to build a better world. He wants to tear us down. He wants us to hate each other. He wants us ultimately to kill each other. And he wants to hurt God by having us hurt each other. And, human beings have dealt with pandemics and catastrophes. I mean, we've lived through ice ages. We've survived a lot, and we're very resilient as a species. But there does seem to be a lot of signs. There's signs in the heavens. People are having visions. Things are happening. Everybody wants 2020 to be over and thinks that 2021 will be better. But 2020 very well may be simply a warm-up for something much, much worse, just like you said. I hope not, but it could be. And I would say to all the listeners, no matter what you think, Jesus Christ is your friend. Turn to the Lord. No matter what happens in the future, you can trust him. You can believe in him and abide in him, and he will abide in you and get you through whatever's coming.
And this is important to say it, especially during Christmas, because I know this year has been challenging for everyone for multiple reasons, some more than others, but it has affected all of us. But exercise gratitude, because we are here, we are alive, we are witnessing something big. When there's something big happening, sometimes the darkest moment of the night is the moment before dawn. And this is exactly what I want you to think of tonight during Christmas Eve. Because tomorrow, we have the opportunity to rise again and make it a better world. When we come back, I want to continue discussing all of this, more of your witness testimony. I want to apologize because we've had some technical problems. One more hour when we come back. How can people buy the book, Richard?
Your sentiments on this day and the significance and the bright tomorrow was beautiful, sir. You're definitely a poet. and a scholar. So my book is available on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble. You can contact basically any of your normal booksellers and you can get it. You can also connect with me on zoranpress.com. I also have a Facebook page for the Paranormal Christian. And I also have a film reviews page on there too called the LA Film Reviews if you're not even into this paranormal stuff and you just want to talk about movies. I love to talk to people. I love to hear all your opinions. And yeah, please. I mean, it's hard to be an independent author and come up in the world, and all the support, I appreciate it. And put your reviews on Amazon too, by the way. All of you that like the book, or even if you don't, please, I welcome all opinions.
The Paranormal Christian, bridging the gap between unusual experiences and the biblical worldview. Much more. One more hour when we come back in the member section. This is Mel Hostelrick. My special guest today is Richard Lewis. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you for listening to the first part of this important Veritas interview. To listen to the rest and all of our material, proceed to the member section or join the Veritas family by subscribing. Click on the subscribe button at veritasradio.com. You can make your purchase with a credit card, PayPal, cash, check, money order, and even cryptocurrency. We are now accepting Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. Don't forget to visit the Veritas store for Focus Life Force Energy, MMS, CBD Pure Hemp Oil, Divina Water, Pure Organic Sulfur, flash drives with all our Sanitas and Veritas seasons, and other great products. And if you're listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, and share it. And click the bell to be notified when new interviews are available. Now, proceed to the members section or subscribe to listen to the rest of the interview. You don't want to miss it. Thank you for listening to Veritas. Because you don't want to believe. You want to know.